Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the GCNC Worldview. I am Chris Day, your host and co-founder of the Global Cannabis Network Collective. It's great to be back. We're here for season 3. We've had quite a hiatus from the last season because, frankly, in order to stay up on what's going on around the world, we needed to get out in it, and have spent a lot of time over the last couple of months doing market tours, talking to entrepreneurs and business owners in a number of quarters, Europe, South America. We've been exploring what's happening in Thailand. And so we've got a great season lined up for you all. And before we jump into that, I also want to make sure I thank our sponsors like Boveda, Canmar, CanIdeal. These are all companies that are helping to really drive the conversation around the global cannabis business ecosystem. And we're so thankful that with their support, we're able to keep this going. And actually, we've got a neat thing that has just launched with Canmar. If you happen to be participating on the Canmar Hub, you can find now the GCNC portal. A lot of conversations happening there about what's going on in the global cannabis markets. And we're just getting it started over there. So would love your support in helping to drive that conversation on that platform. And of course, you can always find out more information about joining the GCNC at gcnc.global. But enough of that. I want to shift us over to the conversation. I've got a great guest and friend, Emanuel Bernal. Who is, I think, probably best known as the CEO and founder of Wolfpac, based out of Denver, the company. But Emanuel, you've got your hands in a whole lot of things. And I think by the fire in the background, I'm guessing you're in Denver today, but I know you're spending a lot of your time these days in Florida. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So before we talk about sort of the global pieces that you're up to, give us a little bit of the background of how you got into cannabis and the story of Wolfpac, because you're one of the hardest working but under the radar entrepreneurs in cannabis that I know.
Yeah.
So I think the audience will probably benefit from hearing a little bit of your story.
Yeah, so I started back when medical marijuana was approved in Denver, and I was license number, I think, like 28. Back in 2008, we applied. Took 2 years to get us approved, but we were still operating under excise license. So did that for a while, vertically integrated. Started from the bottom, did everything from signing the lease to designing and building the interior of the dispensaries, and building the grows and growing as well. So we did everything vertically integrated operator, and sold that operation in 2013, for what I thought was a lot of money back then. It was really not much nowadays. And got into full production of cannabis indoor. And now in those times, I just wanted to produce flower, but I realized that I needed to have a retail again. So I started a brand, and it was called Wolfpac Cannabis. Kind of, it came out of just trying to really do something culture driven, something different, not a green cross or green something. So we kind of made it like a urban lifestyle brand, which is called Wolfpac Cannabis. And we started that, and really try to just do unique things with marketing. Try to do stuff that we were able to, without bending the marketing rules. So a lot of stuff on social media with like merchandise, lifestyle, marketing, branding, music, culture, like with culture driven, just content. So that's how that happened. But then in 2015, I realized that my talent was going to be needed out of Colorado, because I'm bilingual and new markets were opening up, like Mexico. Well, we thought Mexico was going to open up,
Yeah.
so that never ended up happening.
I still have hope, man. I still have
Yeah,
hope.
we still have
It's
hope
coming.
too.
It's coming.
Yeah, but we were there in 2015, knocking on the Congress's door, going to the Senate, doing a lot of lobbying there, and just doing the dance. Going, showing up to expos, talking to people, letting them know where we were from, doing live streams from my grow operation to crowds of people, just showing them, like our live operations. So that was a pretty awesome tool, and it opened up a lot of doors with a lot of actors outside of the U.S. as well. And then got invited to go to Colombia. So then we started doing that, going to those shows and showing up, and I really fell in love with Colombia. Um, and just keep networking. This industry is about networking, and you keep going and you show up and you kind of just talk to people and keep going. And I didn't stop in Colombia. I kept going to new markets. Canada. I spent a little bit of time in Canada as well, and that was a really interesting market because of the legalization and everything that they were doing. So met some companies over there. I decided, okay, let's see where else we could go. Ended up going to Israel. I fell in love with Israel because I saw it was like the the expos and the events were at another level than the US. It wasn't like let's go smoke a joint and hang out. It was like real businessmen. So I was really I fell in love with it over there, and
Yeah, I think
kept on.
one thing I want to sort of point out about your story that I really appreciate. And that is, so many people that I talk to look at different markets and they see all the walls. They see all the
Yeah.
reasons why they can't. And you have this really interesting talent for being able to see past the walls and figure
Yeah.
out how you can do something, right? Like the creativity necessary in this market goes back to what you did with Wolfpac, right?
Yeah.
We can't market until we can. So we create a
Yeah.
lifestyle brand and a culture brand that we can market because you can do that. And you were able to successfully pivot. So I didn't mean to derail it, but
No,
it's
no,
such
no.
an important message for the audience, to look at the pathways that are available as opposed to seeing only those that aren't.
Yeah, and we gotta just it's either that or drowned, and we're here to show up and do a good job, and these markets they're really tough. You got to really figure out how to pivot and move even when there's something coming. You can't stop. So yeah, that's kind of the mentality. But yeah, back to Israel. I met a lot of people over there. I ended up getting a really good relationship with Dr. Michael Dorr, and that really took me a lot of places because he was the person that signed all the business licenses and the patient licenses for cannabis in Israel.
Mm.
So then we were talking, and I invited him to Mexico to go talk to the Congress and all that. So we hosted him, and that that concept that we made was where he would go talk about the the health benefits of cannabis, and I was talking more of the business. So we were kind of doing that, and we were doing it in Spanish. I was doing my part in Spanish. He was doing his in English, and we went to a lot of different cities in Mexico, and then we ended up going to Panama as well for it with Cantech. So we were doing it there, and just really kept that connection. He also would go. He also would get invited to go speak and do lectures on cannabis to all of these other countries. So that was his agenda for the ministry. So he was going to all these countries. So then he started opening up the doors for me and recommended me to do a few different things. I even got on a license in Malta, as a cannabis expert. When they first opened up, and stuck with those relationships as well. Connected me with some people in Germany, um, Man, a lot of places, a lot
So
of different places. It just
as
keeps
as
going. It's
you
crazy.
go as you go through all of these relationships and footprints today, we have you still have the lifestyle culture brand Wolfpac. I
I do.
believe there's the a cultivation partnership you have in Colombia. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And was it last week, 2 weeks ago? I can't remember, but recently you and I were talking about sort of this interesting space in the market, which is really focused almost on, let's say, brokerage of
Yeah.
wholesale, whether it be distillates, isolates, biomass. Tell me a little bit about how you're pivoting, because to me, every time I see you, it's about sort of being master of the pivot and navigating
Yeah.
the market.
Yeah.
What brought you to focusing on that, and where do you see the best opportunities? Do you see them sort of being North America for you still, or is it broader than that?
I think it's a hub. You have to position yourself in a couple places because if you're just from what I'm seeing, all these countries have different regulations, different products, different prices. So I think having a couple different distribution hubs and like a strategy that we've been looking at, and building, like, it goes back to the relationships, working with other people that are in other hubs and kind of having a connection to their license, and working with sales. Now in cannabis nowadays, man, the operators are the ones that don't make any money, because we have all the overhead, and I've been an operator my whole career. So now I'm like, I like to ask people the question, who's making money in cannabis? And I like to hear what they say, you know. Um, and I'm seeing like the people with the less overhead, you know, the people with the less overhead are the ones making money, that are making transactions. So I'm trying to, always try to solve problems in this industry, and that's where the money is, and that's what I think.
Helping
So
to drive
I, st-
transactions. And
yep,
when you're looking around the world and you want to create these distribution hubs and partnerships, considering you've got friends and colleagues in almost every active market,
yeah.
where are you looking to place sort of your operational hubs?
Colombia is a hub for sure. Israel's another hub. We have some talks with some people in Canada as well. Thailand, we're definitely have a good eye on Thailand. I spent about 2 months this year in Thailand, really researching the market and just trying to find out when is the right time to get in, because this is all about timing as well, because I mean, we showed up to Mexico in 2015 and there hasn't been one thing done, but well, we just smoke weed there, and that's it.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I still spend a large part of my year each year in Mexico, and um, yeah, it's shocking to me how long it's taking for them to get the legislation through. I wouldn't anticipate it this year, probably not
no,
next, sadly, but it is also interesting as you look at like how these emerging markets pivot, how much focus now is on Asia with this concentration on Thailand. A couple of years ago, it was all about Mexico, South America, Latin America as a whole. And while that's still a topic, now attention is focused primarily, I think, for emerging markets in Asia. But do you think, since you've spent some time there, um, do you think that's going to be a somewhat similar story where there's a lot of hype but not a lot of action? Or do you think, from a trend perspective, that they're going to get traction?
I think that it's really early. Okay, what I saw, I felt like I went in a time machine 20 years back, but it was like a mixture of all our markets, like on steroids, because I mean, the first thing I saw was somebody selling weed outside of a car,
Mhm.
you know, openly and on the street. dispensaries everywhere. So I did, I met and I talked to everyone from the street dealers to like the licensed producers over there. So I think that anywhere from, you know, the market over there is overpriced, okay, compared to what we're seeing production in costs in South America or in Africa, because there's a lot of production going on in Africa right now too. Um, and I think that they're overpriced right now. All the sales are really low. Their retail sales were based off of 1 gram increments. So it's like a tourist buying a joint, so you're not seeing huge amounts of money. I think the people with the really big projections, they're never going to hit those projections, because it's not reasonable. The only way they're going to hit those projections if they do exporting to a lot of different markets, but I think it's going to be really slow. I think the numbers are going to be low. Hemp and CBD production, they don't got it down yet, like the US. They still don't have it. I have videos and photos, and I touched and I smoked all of their product, and they're still not up to the US standards. And I think it's going to take some time to get them there. And I base everything off the US because I think we're leading in quality with cannabis. So
do you think your colleagues in Colombia would agree?
I think that Colombia needs a lot of help.
Okay.
I think Colombia needs a lot of help as well. It's going to take US operators to educate the world, because we were the first ones to start doing this, legally.
On the
that's really what I think.
It's an interesting conversation, because I'll talk to folks in Europe, and of course in Europe it's heavily focused on medicinal, and then you talk to a lot of the researchers in Israel, and so the definition of what is quality, what does that really look like and mean, right, is always the ongoing debate. However, I think if there's anybody who has a right to comment on the quality of U.S. cannabis and have an opinion on that, you're certainly one of them. So I just have to, because the conversation comes up all the time, I have to point out that for many people, the definition of quality and how that's grown and to what standards is somewhat qualitative in nature.
Well, I think you're right. Every country has its own special area in cannabis. Like Israel, definitely they're leading in research for sure. I was referring to quality of product, finished products. And the Europe does have some good operations. They have I know of a really big indoor facility in Europe. But I still see them a little bit behind the quality. The quality still isn't there. They're trying to get US genetics over. They're trying to get US talent over there, and you're seeing the us Americans all over the world, getting scouted to go to these places. So, that is a good debate. But we started first. That's why. But GMP standards, now that's a different story. The US is not a leader in GMP standards for sure. Yep. For pharmaceutical cannabis, no. I was just referring to like yield and quality of finished products, or flour, dry flour. So that's where I go. And in Thailand, going back to Thailand, they had US talent there. It just wasn't dialed in. Are they going to get dialed in on the indoor grows? Yes, definitely. They're already starting to. With the hemp production, I haven't seen it there. Like we've seen in the US. But will it get there? Yeah, I think so. Will there be imports for hemp that way? Yes. I think we will be importing hemp products. That's kind of like the next boom for the US on the hemp side. The hemp side, or even importing, So it's kind of timing. It goes back to timing. What is it?
And that's what you're doing, right, Emanuel, with the current business and really trying to do wholesale shipments globally is figure out where those import and export transactions are happening and trying to be at the center of that. is my interpretation. Is that an accurate interpretation?
Yeah, definitely. Just going back to timing, when is the right time to jump in and what we're going to take over there, what we're going to sell from there? Because there is some operators like in Israel that they have overstock because they overproduced, and they have all the certifications to get into like maybe Australia. You know, so that's kind of like another strategy of helping people move around their product. Without having all of the overhead, because we've had the overhead. I've had over 120,000 square feet of indoor cultivation space, and it is not cheap.
Right. Yeah.
You're
No, it's
taxed.
not. It's
It's not.
expensive, and the talent to do those types of operations well are also not expensive. I mean, are also not inexpensive. Um, I think it's an ongoing lesson that a lot of markets haven't focused on yet, but are coming. You were talking about the price points in Thailand. Obviously, in other parts of the world, the market's just bottomed out. And that's often because we've created these false economies, right? When you limit international trade and you limit the way in which people can import and export, it creates gluts in some markets and scarcity in others. And as these organizations and governments sort of normalize the discussion, then you start to really talk about more traditional economic models. And I think people need to pay closer attention to that, because there are multiple points, two optimal points on supply-demand curves that look at price versus quantity. There's either lower quantities and higher prices, or higher quantities and lower prices, and then each one of these subsegments within the cannabis industry have their own curves. That is traditional economics, business modeling, planning, something that has been often forgotten in cannabis. And I think the fact that you have shifted so much into these multinational plays and are looking at the timing of the markets and who has what in different parts of the world that can be traded and sold in others is indicative that time is coming. And the earlier you enter into sound business models, the better. I mean, certainly the early Canadian markets completely ignored it. A lot of the early entrants, when markets first open up, completely ignore it. But without a doubt, the companies that last and stay strong are the ones that pay attention from the outset.
Yeah, definitely. Talk about Canada, man. They did us a lot of overproduction, but I'm following a couple things that they're doing, and the export is really saving some of them. That's really their lifesaver. So just paying attention, and I like actually going to the markets. I like being there, meeting the people, letting them know, hey, I'm willing to invest into myself, and I'm here, guys. What can we do?
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole premise of the GCNC as well, right? I always tell people, if you're going to operate in a global market, you need to be in that market. You need to travel. Zoom's great. I love doing these kinds of conversations. We can share knowledge much more efficiently and effectively than in the past. But at the root of business is also culture and traditions and how people interact. And you cannot learn that without being there. And you can't understand how that works without talking to folks that are in market. So it does help if you like to travel. I know you do, and I do as well. But it's also a business imperative.
Exactly. I mean, it's expensive traveling. Anywhere you go, you're spending some money if you're going, on a different 12-hour different time zone, or 8 or 10. Even if you go south, traveling is expensive. So we definitely have to make money on doing what we love. If not, it's just a hobby.
Yeah, you got to figure out. And I think there's a lot of hobbyists in cannabis, some of them intentional, some of them not. So I think it's a good opportunity to to just raise that awareness again amongst folks and say, look, solid business planning, openness to discussions about how the markets flow, that's important. And that's what the GCNC is here to do for professionals and companies around the world. I know it's part of what you do as well is help educate. You've spent a huge amount of time traveling the world and just educating people on the business of cannabis and the opportunities of cannabis. And I think it's great that you're continuing to do that while also continuing to pivot and look for those opportunities. Emanuel, before we wrap it up, two things. One, make sure that you tell people how to find you and reach you. And then the closing question I have is, where in all the different markets that you're working in and the different parts of the world that you've been to over the last 12 to 18 months, where do you see the most opportunity for driving transactions over the next 6 months? And then where do you think we'll be in a year and a half from now in that discussion? Is it the same or different?
6 months from now, I would maybe say a little more than 6 months. And I'm picking the places where I want to be now. I'm not going to markets where I'm not happy. That's my new thing now is if I'm not going to like it there, I'm not going to go. So I'm picking Colombia a year from now. Smaller transactions will happen out of there now, but I think we have to let the cultivators catch up to the production and the quality there. So there is smaller growers right now that are getting their act together, in a couple GMP facilities that new ones that are coming on board, but I would pick there because I think the cost is really low, and it's a good hub. A year and a half from now, I would say I would still want to be there. We're hoping that other countries, maybe like Thailand and Israel, I could see that. That's my triangle, that I'm seeing. That's like the triangle that I'm trying to connect, because you're crossing all through Europe. You can stop anywhere between Colombia to Israel, so there's a lot of good stopping points in the middle of that hub. Yeah. And then Thailand for what's going on in Asia, because we got to keep our eye on Asia, because there's a lot of new things, even those expos that are going on. There's like that, I think they have a CanCon, I think they called it, in Japan, going on. I don't know if you saw that.
It's I agree with you. And for a lot of the North and South American markets, and even the European markets, they're not on the radar a lot of times. Like they just aren't getting the attention from these other markets. And I think it's at the rest of the world's peril to not pay attention to what's going on in Asia, because you're going to wake up someday and it's going to feel like this enormous market just popped up out of nowhere. And it will have been building for years. I mean, as it is already, it's been building for years. So, but it's now starting to really become, I think, a true opportunity for the world, not just for the region. So, Emanuel, really appreciate having you on today. Again, if somebody wants to reach you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you guys can find me on LinkedIn under Emanuel Bernal. There's 2 accounts. The one that has a lot of information, I don't even know how that second account got up there. And on my Instagram at EMAN at 80211, and my email is eman.ber@icloud.com.
Perfect.
So that's the way to get a hold of me.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Emanuel. It's always great talking to you. I think we're going to miss each other by a couple of days in Denver. I'm passing through next week. You're there. Stay warm. I noticed, we've got the fire and the snow happening over there. But and thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the GCNC Worldview, just subscribe now so you don't have to do it later. And check in with us for all of the season. We've got great guests coming up here over the next couple of weeks as well. And I also need to plug, because this will air just before MJ BizCon 2023, GCNC will be hosting our C-Suite Connector on November 29th. And you can email me at chris.day@alwaysdriveinnovation.com if you're interested in attending that event adjacent to MJ BizCon this year. We loved hosting the one in Berlin a couple of months ago. We've done them in Cartagena, Colombia, and the biggest one of the year is tied to the biggest conference of the year at MJ BizCon. So join us for the GCNC C-Suite Connector there. And until next time, everybody, have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.